This is Pokemon Infinite Fusion, the fan game with over 221,000 different Pokemon combinations. And we're here today to see if we can meet a hardcore randomized Nuzlocke using only Dragon-type Pokemon. That means if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like the video of the sound of my voice and this isn't your first time here, you should definitely make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. The only way I'm going to be able to continue to grow is with all of your help, so anything you could do would be like super cool. Also, if you like Dungeons & Dragons, Fakemon, or maybe both those things, you should check out some of my D&D videos where I'm turning Dungeons & Dragons monsters and classes into Pokemon. We're also going to be live streaming some homebrew rules to be a Pokemon trainer in D&D. But anywho, let's jump into the video. Starting things off in Professor Oak's lab, let's take a quick look and see what our randomized starter Pokemon are going to be. We also need to keep in mind that I'm going to be starting with the first stage of every non-legendary Dragon-type Pokemon in Pokemon Infinite Fusion, and every time we capture a new Pokemon, it can only be fused up with one of those dragons. So for our starter choices here, we have Cacnea, Fanphy, and Houndour. And for our starter Pokemon here, we're actually going to choose Houndour. And for our first pair, we're going to be fusing up Tyrunt with our new Houndour to get this awesome little Houndrunt. And now it's time for us to take on Rando in our first ever rival battle. Rando starts off with Pania, and we send in Houndrunt. And going for an Ember, we do about a third and manage to get the burn off, which is awesome. So when we go for another one, he gets knocked down way into the red, and a third one finishes him off. And take that, Rando. Okay, so I was going to try to dress myself up with Claire, but what is up with these goggles with the headphones attached? And this Cresselia dress? 10 out of 10. Pokeballs in hand, let's see what friends we can make before facing off against Brock. Over on Route 1, we're going to grab ourselves a Jigglypuff. On 22, we're going to grab a Nidoran female. Over in the Secret Garden, we grab an Abra. And our Pyukumuku's been randomized into a Croconaw. On Route 2, we're going to grab ourselves a Ralts. Then over in Viridian Forest, we're going to grab ourselves a Phoebus. And then finally over on Route 3, we get a 2-for-1 with a Litrak. Next up, we're going to fuse up Croconaw with Axew, and I absolutely love Axnaw. And now it's time for us to take on Brock and his grassy goons. He starts off by sending in Senish, and we send in Dante. Going for a number right away, we get it down to about a third after a scratch does a beta damage. Following up with a quick attack, we can grab the KO, which leads into Hopion, who is absolutely precious. I love so many Kecleon fusions, and this one being an Axolotl is amazing, and a Fairy Wind is less than ideal, so we're going to swap out, sending in Boomba, who's not paralyzed, as it goes for another Fairy Wind. But we can outspeed with a Dragon Rage, grab the KO, and defeat Brock. And our Magikarp's been randomized into a Tyrogue. Inside of Outmoon, we run into Nurse Joy tending to this wounded Geodude. And that's when Brock decides he can make an impression, but he accidentally uses First Impression on the Geodude, knocking it to the other side of Mount Moon, taking everybody off guard, including Nurse Joy, who decides it's probably best to just leave. And Brock is left all alone with this young man. We're gonna grab ourselves a Cleffa inside of Mount Moon. After making our way to the back of Mount Moon, we find Giovanni and a bunch of Rocket Grunts doing Arceus knows what. And that's when the Rocket Grunts slap down these 3 Rocket Starters and they turn on the machine. But after they turn on that machine, it explodes and all 3 Rocket Grunts as well as all of the Team Rocket members blast off to parts unknown. And over on Route 4, we're going to grab ourselves a Fletchling. And to beef up the party a bit, we're going to evolve our Cleffa into a Clefable right away and fuse it up with Goomy to get this adorable little Blob Fairy. And next up, we're going to add our Nidoran to the party and evolve it right away into a Nidoqueen. Then fusing it up with Dino because, honestly, it's the only Pokemon that has a custom sprite with all 3 stages. Welcome to the team, Nidodo. Under the cover of night, we run into Rando over on Nugget Bridge. Apparently, he has just pulled the fabled Excalibur from its stone in the Cerulean Bay. And not only is he now the King of England, he also declares that he is the Slayer of Dragons. And the battle begins. Rando starts off by sending in a Munchable, and we send in Dante. So I'm going to set up a Stealth Rock because it's funny as this thing decides to go for an Amnesia. We're then going to swap Dante out, and we're going to send in Littlefoot instead, as this thing goes for a lick, and we get the poison off. From here, we're going to go for a Dragon Rage, getting it down pretty low, as it goes for a chip away, getting us down pretty low as well. But then when Rando uses the Super Potion to heal up, we're going to roar it out, which is going to have him switch into his fan turn. And going for another Dragon Rage, we get it down pretty low, as it goes for a rollout, scoring a crit on us, activating our berry. But with one more Dragon Rage, we take it out. Sizey comes in next, and I love this little fella. So assuming a Psychic move, we're going to swap out, sending in Dante as he goes for a Water Pulse. But that's okay, because I can chop this thing down in just one shot, which is going to lead into Spintini. And if you want to be the Slayer of Dragons, Rando, maybe you shouldn't have so many dragons on your squad. It then goes for a Scary Face, and then an Infestation after that, and going for a Bite, we can easily take it down. Which means when Munchable comes back in, it's going to go for a chip away, knocking us down super low, activating our berry, and then we get it down into the red as well. And we're going to swap out, sending in Pumbaa instead. That way it goes for another chip away that we can just barely tank. But we outspeed, go for a bite, grab the KO, defeat Rando. Over on Route 24, we're going to grab ourselves a Solosis. Before facing off against Misty, Dante is going to evolve into a Houndrunt. We make our way over to Bill's lab, where we see him accidentally fuse up with his best friend, this Rhydon. At a loss for words because he lost the ability to speak, we decide to throw this guy a bone, so to speak. Or maybe more like toss him a rock. And we head over to his computer to reverse the fusion, where Bill walks out the other side. Well, what the heck happened to the Rhydon? And then he gives us boat tickets to buy our silence. And because now he's in mourning. And now it's time for us to face off against Misty and her rock hard boys. Her first hard boy. Nastily comes in and we send in Pumbaa. So we're going to go for a Dragon Rage right away, getting it down into the red as an Ominous Wind does some chip damage. And after Misty heals up, we can go for another couple of Dragon Rages, taking down the little bird boy. Omisy comes in next, and this thing is absolutely precious. And after it throws a little bit of water in our face, we can take it down too, in the Dragon's Triumph. On Route 5, we're going to grab ourselves a Shinx. And over on Route 6, we get this rat. Over on Diggle's Cave, we grab ourselves a Slack Off. And on 11, we're going to grab a Grimer. And now it's time for us to take on Surge and his Fighty Fight Boys. Surge's first Fighty Fight Boy is a Luca Kuna, and we send in Splat. He goes for a Feint right away, and I'm going to start stacking up Minimizes because why the heck not, as it hits us with another Feint. And once we get to +6, it then goes for a Swords Dance, and we can go for a Smoochie Kiss, doing about a third, healing up. And then after we hit it with another one, we're going to get it down way into the red as it hits us with a Power-Up Punch. And after it heals up with its second Super Potion, we are going to go ahead and paralyze it with a Dragon Breath and take it down after a couple of more kisses. Hitmonlee comes in next, and this thing is amazing. And after we do a bit of damage, we're going to go ahead and do a Dragon Breath, activating its Citrus Berry. And then after going for another couple of Dragon Breaths, we're going to be able to bring down the Hitmonlee. His final Pokemon, Florogue, comes in, and we're going to go for a Draining Kiss, bringing it down to about a quarter, but we're going to be paralyzed because we shouldn't have smooched it so hard. And then after missing a takedown, one more kiss takes down this little sheep, and we defeat Surge. We're on Route 9, we're going to grab a Beldum. And then on 10, we're going to grab a Phanpy. In Rock Tunnel, our Honed has been randomized into a Psyduck. And in Rock Tunnel, we're going to grab ourselves a Cacnea. Wanting to add another member to our party, we are going to fuse Shinx up with Gibble and get ourselves this silly little Gibnix, who is going to evolve right away into this thing. And after getting it towards the level gap, it's going to evolve eventually into a Gabray. Next up to evolve is gonna be Pumbaa, who ascends into an Axligator. We run into Rando over in Pokemon Tower, where he's mourning the loss of so many of his soldiers. In his crusade to defeat all dragons and become the bestest king of England ever, we're the next step on his journey. Shwing comes in first, and we send in Pumbaa. And I'm going to go for a Dragon Dance on the first turn because now Pumbaa is completely online. And going for a Crunch, we do about 60%, and one more takes it down. Next up comes Donturn. And going for Ice Fang, we get it down wicked low as it goes for an Assurance. After that, Rando heals up with a Super Potion, and then a second one as we finally take it down. Next up comes Dailus. Excuse you, my friend. And going for a +1, Dragon Claw is not quite enough for the KO, but a second one sure is. And his final Pokemon, Clefable, comes in. And not sure if it's rocking a fairy move or not, we're going to swap out into Littlefoot as we get put to sleep. And risking it, we're going to swap out again into Dante as it then goes for a Fury Cutter. But we can fire back with a Fire Fang, we take it down, defeating Rando. And why do you hate dragons so much? You literally had a legendary one. Rando then lets us know that dragons are the bane of all existence. But sometimes you have to become what you hate to become the best king England's ever known. And that's when we hear a commotion going on the other side of the room and we go and check it out. And that's when we see Team Rocket forcing this old man upstairs with them to do God knows what. And somebody has to stop him, but it sure as hell isn't gonna be the king. And Rando runs off. Over on Route 8, we're gonna grab ourselves a Riolu. Next up to evolve is gonna be Pumbaa, who's gonna ascend into a Fraxelgator. And over on Route 9, we're gonna grab a Ladybug. And over in the game corner, our Scyther is randomized into a Beware. And for our final party slot, we are going to fuse Beware up with Altaria, and I absolutely love the wear and tear on this big old stuffy. Over in Celadon City, we find Rando beating up these two rocket grunts, because I guess the King of England finally decided to do something for somebody besides himself. He's heard that their boss has been trying to construct the ultimate Pokémon, a three-headed monstrosity capable of leveling the entire Kanto region. So Rando deduces that it must be some sort of dragon, and he'll stop at nothing to destroy all dragons. But he also doesn't want to walk into the gross sewer water, so he's going to go buy some waders. He tells us not to bother going inside because he's going to take care of everything. And over in the sewers, we're going to grab ourselves a Haunter. But of course, we don't listen to Rando, and we run ahead when we find that Erica's already been defeated by Giovanni. So it looks like it's going to be up to us to stop Team Rocket and save Celadon City. Daddy Geo starts off by sending in a Cookados, and we go ahead and send in Altaware. It's gonna go for a Scary Face, lowering our speed, but joke's on you, buddy. I can go fast. So fast because of my Dragon Dances. And this thing's gonna go for a dig, doing a decent amount of damage after we stack up a couple of Dragon Dances. And once we get to +3 on everything, it's gonna go for another dig, so I might as well get to +4, as another dig brings me down to about half. Now going for a Brick Critic, we can score a massive hit, grabbing ourselves the Yoko. Out next comes Charpit. And we're going to go for a Thunder Punch, grabbing ourselves the KO on the Charpit, which leads into Paratails, his final Pokemon. And Ice Punch does about 50% as it uses the Spore, putting us to sleep. So we're going to swap out this time, sending in Littlefoot as it goes for a Slash. It's then going to use another Spore, putting us to sleep, and the audacity of this Paratails. But luckily we wake up and it doesn't have Flash Fire before Giovanni heals up with a Max Potion. So after going for a Dragon Pulse, getting this thing almost into the red, we get put to sleep again. So we'll swap out again, this time sending in Dante as it goes for another Slash. And after going for a Fury Cutter and scoring a massive hit on us, we can take it down, but not before an Effect Floor puts us to sleep. But luckily the battle's over, and we defeat Giovanni. Before taking on Erica, Dante is going to evolve into its final form of Houndrum. And now it's time for us to take on Erica and her Buzzy Buzz Bugs. Galvanitar comes in first and we send in Littlefoot. It's going to go for a Slash on the first turn, and we go for a Flamethrower, doing about 2/3 as she swaps out, sending in Buttervion, who looks like it's wearing the most adorable bow tie. But I also can't tell if that's Mandibles. Anyway, we're going to get Whirlwinded out, and then Pumbaa's going to come in. Assuming that she's going to heal up, and she does, we're going to go for a single Dragon Dance. And now going for a Poison Jab on this Sylveon, we take it down, which leads back into Galvanitar, who we can get down way into the red and get the poison off on before Signal Beam comes in, doing a lot of damage to us. But a Crunch takes it out. Her final Pokemon, Vaporlith, comes in, and I'm going to go for another Poison Jab, doing about 50% as this thing sets up an Aqua Ring. Then switching things up, going for a Crunch, we're going to get it down into the red as it activates its berry, and it's going to go for a Muddy Water, getting us down below half, activating our own berry. From here, another Crunch is going to take it down, and we defeat Erica. In Pokemon Tower, we grab a Meowth. And at the top of Pokemon Tower, we find Mr. Fuji, who it turns out is the original creator of the Master Ball, and he lets us in on Team Rocket's deep dark secret. They want to catch strong Pokemon and make a strong triple fusion, which we already knew. You haven't given me any new information. Thanks for the flute. And then we go ahead and play our flute for this Sleeping Bear, and once it wakes up, it turns out it's a Sleeping Flygon, which is a dupe. But for our normal encounter on Route 12, we grab a Gloom. And on 13, a Clink. Over on 14, we get this thing. On 15, we get this thing. And over on 18, we get this thing. Then finally in the Safari Zone, we're going to grab ourselves a Coughing. Before facing off against Koga, Splat is going to evolve into its next form. Ugh. And now it's time for us to take on Koga and his ghastly ghouls. He starts off with Duskvoar, and we send in Dante. On the first turn, we're going to go for a Crunch, scoring a massive hit and getting the KO, which is going to lead into a Woobat. And since this Crunch is going to be quite effective, we can take it down in one shot as well, which is going to lead into Sandy Edge. And every single one of these sprites is absolutely precious. Whoa! Magmagregus comes out as his final Pokemon, and this thing is also wicked, but we take it down in one shot, and even though our attack's lowered from Flame Body, there's nothing left to fight us, and we defeat Koga. And for saving everybody in Silph Co, we get a Porygon 2. I forgot how long it takes this guy to evolve. Littlefoot's finally going to ascend into its second form of Needleless. Splat is then going to evolve into their final form of this adorable little Goofable. Next up is going to be Atari, and this fusion rocks so hard. Welcome to the Team Garay. And then finally reaching their final form as well, Pumbaa evolves into a Haxelgator. But we're also going to reverse Pumbaa's fusion because these ones are a bit cooler, I think. Enter a Feroxis. And look at this lad. We run into Rando and Silph Co, who's incredibly frustrated that we managed to defeat Team Rocket before he could pick out the perfect pair of pants back in Celadon City. But he's here to correct that mistake. He's gonna stop us before we can stop them, which seems counterintuitive. Anyways, Wigglywear comes in, and I'm gonna have Atari go for a charge right away, raising our special defense as it goes for a Disable. Then going for a Spark, we do about 50%, and then another one's going to bring it down into the red, but we are now, unfortunately, never mind. And then one more takes it down, leading into Don's turn. And we're going to swap Atari out this time, sending in Snuggle as it goes for an Earthquake, doing about 60% to us. On the following turn, it goes for a Giga Impact, and we can go for an Ice Punch, doing about 50%, which means we can then take it down, which will lead into Venonium, who's going to go for a Zen Headbutt, getting us down into the red as an Ice Punch does about a quarter. Assuming another Zen Headbutt, we're going to swap out into Dante when he goes for a Poison Fang and getting the poison off on us. Another Poison Fang is going to do a bit to us, and a Fire Fang takes it down. This leads into Arcmander, which, excuse you, as we swap out, sending in Pumbaa, and this thing goes for a Hyper Voice. It's then going to go for an Extreme Speed, getting us down to about a third as we heal back up to half, and a Crunch doesn't even do half. After a second one, we do fortunately manage to get the defense drop, so when he goes for another Extreme Speed, we can KO it with another Crunch. This will lead into Lickypoke's final Pokemon, and we're going to swap out, sending in Splat as the Lickypoke goes for a Chip Away. Splat can then fire off a Dragon Pulse, doing about half as a rollout does next to nothing, and one more Dragon Pulse is going to bring this thing down way into the red. But after just one more, we can take it down, and we defeat Rando, who agrees to help us defeat Giovanni together. And after busting into the Silph President's office, interrupting Giovanni's conversation, Rando declares that Rando the Dragon Slayer is here, and Team Rockets will suffer greatly for their crimes. Ferromega and Celosion come in, and we send in Wigglywear and Snuggle. The Celosion goes for a Dragon Pulse, getting me down well below half, as the Ferromega then goes for a Payback, doing a bit of damage, and we set up a Dragon Dance. Knowing I don't really have a good option here, I'm going to stay in as this thing goes for another Dragon Pulse and unfortunately takes Snuggle down before Wigglywear uses Sing, putting it to sleep. So we're going to send in Splat and start stacking up Minimizes while this thing is asleep. After we get to +4 on that, the Wigglywear is going to start going for Defense Curls as well. The Ferromega is going to keep on hitting me for some reason though, and now that we're at +6 and the Celosion is still asleep, thankfully, it wakes up going for an Agility, and I can go for a Smoochie Kiss, doing barely anything to it. After that, Brian's going to take the Wigglywear down to about half, and then we're going to get the Celosion down pretty low. And after it goes for another Agility, one more Dragon Pulse takes it down. Milgon comes in next for Giovanni. And after the Ferromega misses an Iron Head, The Milgon is then going to go for a Gyro Ball doing a bit of damage, and we're going to fire off a Dragon Pulse, getting the Milgon down pretty low. Giovanni is then going to heal up with a Max Potion as this thing continues to just wear down Wiggly Rare, and we're going to go down for another Dragon Pulse, and then it's going to get put to sleep. And then on the following turn, one more Dragon Pulse can take it down. Then going for a Double Slap, the Pharamega is going to get down to about half, but heal up because of his leftovers as Flysaur comes in. We're then going to go for a Dragon Pulse on Flysaur, getting it down about a quarter as the Pharamega then gets knocked down to about a third. An Iron Head is going to knock Splat down to its berry so we can heal up just a bit before going for an Ice Beam, getting the Flysaur down super low. After that, a Double Slap is going to get it down into the red as it decides to go back to using Payback for some reason, and we can take the Flysaur down. After that, another bunch of slaps, take down the Pharamega, and we defeat Giovanni. And unfortunately, we've lost our first Pokemon, but fortunately, we kicked Team Rocket the heck out of here. And for saving everyone in Silph Co, we get a dupe. With access to Goldenrod City, we can evolve our Ralts into a Gallade and then fuse it up with Salamence to get ourselves this awesome Salade. And now it's time for to take on Sabrina and her slippery when wet water Pokemon. We start us with Bruxton and we send in Salade. On the first turn, we are going to go for a Swords Dance to double our attack as it hits us with an Aqua Tail. And then from here, we're going to go for a Leaf Blade, taking it down in just one shot, which is going to lead into a double fuse for Ralligator. But see ya! Next up is going to come a Porylurk, and this thing is amazing, which leads into Sicario as her final Pokemon, who doesn't quite go down since it's part Steel, and then she heals up with a Max Potion. But after she heals up a second time, we're going to be able to take this thing down with a couple more Leaf Blades, and with that, we defeat Sabrina. Over on Cinnabar Island, our Absol has been randomized into a fortress. Over on the offshore road, we're going to grab ourselves a Cyndaquil. And in Mount Ember, we're going to grab ourselves an Eevee. And we're going to head over to Mount Ember before taking care of Blaine, because Blaine's a Fairy-type trainer, so I'm going to be hoping that the legendary birds are going to be randomized into something really, really good, or some of the legendary dragons, so we can use some of those. But anywho, we make our way over to Mount Ember, where it turns out that Giovanni has not only managed to capture all 3 Cantonian legendary birds, but he's perfected triple fusion, and with them he combined them into one super bird. He says he's going to call it Zapmalcuno, but I think he should call it Super Duper Bird. And he probably should have combined 3 dragon Pokemon, because it'd be a hell of a lot better than 3 birds. But he's here to try to prove us wrong. Super Bird comes out, and we're going to send in Dante. We're going to go for a Rock Slide right away, even though these birds are buried up and they're not even going to take half damage because of the Charty Berries. Now going for an Ice Beam, Dante's going to get knocked down to 1 HP and frozen as this thing sets up a Tailwind and then a Thunderbolt, getting me down to 3. So we're going to swap out, sending in Atari instead, so we can get the Intimidate off on anybody, but I don't think that's really going to matter here, as that Mokuna goes for another Ice Beam, which is going to heal Atari up just a bit, and a Flamethrower is going to do just a tiny bit of damage along with a Thunderbolt. From here, we're going to go for a Discharge, getting each of the birds down pretty low, but they're not low enough as Atari goes down to an Ice Beam. So in comes Pumbaa. And after taking a Flamethrower as well as a Thunderbolt, which is going to activate our berries, I go for an Ice Fang on Articuno, and it is not enough. But one more can take it down, as the Moltres then sets up a Safeguard, and a Thunderbolt unfortunately paralyzes us. So with the big problem out of the way, we're going to swap out, sending in Splat, as the Moltres goes ahead and uses Roost, and Zapmalcuno uses Thunderbolt. From here, we're going to start stacking up the minimizes, because what the heck else am I supposed to do? So after we get the +4, and then this thing keeps on hitting Thunderbolts, we eventually get our way to +6 as the Moltres heals up all the way. Now we're going to start going for Ice Beams on Zapdos, and after we accidentally click on the wrong one, it's going to set up a light screen, which means then unfortunately we're going to be doing even less, but at least it's dead now. So going for another Ice Beam, we do barely anything, and Flamethrower does barely anything to us. So we're going to switch things up, going for Dragon Pulses instead, because we can do at least a little bit more damage. And now that the light screen's down, hopefully we'll be able to make a bigger impact as we get it down to about a quarter, and then down to basically nothing. before we can finally take it down, defeating Zapalcuno, but we lost Atari. But with that, the three birds defuse and disappear to parts unknown, except I know exactly where they are, and I'm gonna go get them. And Moltres has been randomized into Latios, who isn't the most powerful legendary Pokemon, but he counts. Next up in the power plant, Zapdos has been randomized into Latios? What's the luck on that? So, because I know we have to contend with some fairy Pokemon, we are going to fuse Gengar up with Latios to get ourselves a Latigar. And next up is going to be Kingra along with Flareon to get ourselves a Fladra. And for our final teammate before facing off against Blaine, we're going to combine Flygon with Typhlosion. And I love this new sprite they added. Okay, I'm honestly petrified, but let's take on Blaine and his fairy Pokemon. Blaine starts off with Donkey, and we send in Spitfire. It goes for an Air Slash on the first turn, and I'm going to try to go for a Will-O-Wisp, but I unfortunately miss. And I might as well just start trying to go for Dragon Dances as I tank a Dragon Rush pretty well as we get up to +2, and it goes for another Air Slash. From here, I'm going to go for a Fire Fang, getting it down pretty low before Blaine uses the full restore, and I get knocked down into the red, but we take the Dunk You down, leaving it to Dracayu. And not really having a good way to switch this out, we're going to swap out Spitfire and then sending in Littlefoot as it goes for a Dragon Tail, doing about 50% and knocking us out. So in comes Jetfire. And going for an Earth Power breaks this thing's disguise as it goes for a Dragon Rush, just absolutely decimating us in one shot. So I guess here comes Orb. And I accidentally click on Dragon Pulse as I get knocked down to just 19 HP. So this time we go for Sludge Bomb and we take it down, which leaves into Volkiki. So once again going for a Sludge Bomb, we can take it down in just one shot, which leads into its final Pokemon, Lukaki. And it goes for a Me First and a Sludge Bomb doing barely any damage, and we can take it down in one, and we just barely scoot by Blaine. And now it's time for us to take on Giovanni and his red hot fire guys. Giovanni starts off by sending in Molesire, and we send in Littlefoot. On the first turn, we're going to go for an Earth Power doing about 50% as this thing sets up a Safeguard. So when we go for another Earth Power, we're going to get it down wicked low as it goes for an Air Slash. From here, Giovanni's going to heal up with his first potion, and we're going to go and do that. Now going for a Surf, we can manage to take the Molesire down. Next up comes just Charizard. I love that not only is it the clone Charizard, but it has the Clone Ball. So anyway, Giovanni's going to heal up after we go for a Surf, so we'll go for another one doing about a third as he swaps Charizard out, sending in 9 Furno, which is just a silly little fella. Anyway, a Quick Attack's going to get the Poison Point off, which is great, so going for another Surf is enough to take it down, which leads back into Charizard, as it then goes for a Fire Spin, activating our Berry. Then from there, we can go for a Surf, getting it down to about a third as we get a little bit more Fire Spin going on, with a Slash getting us down below half, but down goes Charizard. Artichoke comes in. And this is somebody's dream, but it's probably my nightmare. But we swap in a Pumba as he goes for an Extreme Speed. We're then gonna go for a single Dragon Dance as he then roars us out like a jerk, sending in Steve. But lucky for me, Steve's packing Psycho Cut as we do about 2/3 and we get roared out again, this time into Splat. So after an Extreme Speed, we're going to go for a Training Kiss, getting this thing down way into the red. Giovanni uses his next potion, and we're going to start smooching this thing. Because honestly, who wouldn't? And after he identifies exactly who we are, we're going to keep on kissing. Because you should probably get to know whoever you kiss before you roar them out and then send Steve back in. But anywho, one more Psycho Cut takes it down, which will lead into Quagdash. And Quagdash is absolutely everything I've ever wanted in a best friend. And we're going to start Psycho Cutting this thing, and now we have it down just a bit below half, as a third one grabs a crit, the KO, and Giovanni's defeat. While fighting our way through Victory Road, Littlefoot is finally going to evolve into a Nidodragon. And for our final encounter, let's see what Entei's been randomized into. And it's a Zapdos. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it yet, but I saw this sprite, so I need you all to see it too. Anywho, this is Metagross and Latias. It's a car. And he's wearing sunglasses, and I love him. Next up, let's show off Zapdos along with Noivern, and I absolutely love Zapfern. Alright everybody, before we face off against the Elite Four, let's take one final look at our brand new team. First up, we have Littlefoot the Nidodragon with Dragon Pulse, Earth Power, Flamethrower, and Surf. Splat the Goofable with Moonblast, Ice Beam, Draining Kiss, and Minimize. Paradox Shuckle the Latiagros with Recover, Hammer Arm, Zen Headbutt, and Meteor Mash. Pumbaa the Pharoxorus with Crunch, Dragon Dance, Aqua Tail, and Poison Jab. Steve the Salade with Psycho Cut, Leaf Blade, Close Combat, and Swords Dance. And finally, Oz the Zapfern with Dragon Pulse, Thunderbolt, Roost, and Boom Burst. It now is time for us to take on Lorelei and her ghastly ghouls. She starts off with Mimdos, and we send in Pumbaa. So I'm going to set up a couple of Dragon Dances, so hopefully I'll be able to swoop through these ghastly ghouls. And after it goes for a Pain Split and a Shadow Claw, we go for a Crunch grabbing the KO, which leads into Latamagias, and I absolutely love. Oh my god, Cooler too? Yo, these sprites are going hard as we don't quite grab the KO, and an Earthquake is going to activate our berry. From here, Lorelei's going to use her first full restore, and we're going to get it down into the red again before she heals up once again. But after using that second potion, we can take it down. Next out comes Dust Tick, and it is an absolute unit as it goes for a payback, doing just a bit of damage to us, but then we can take it down. Her final Pokemon, Muffin. Her final Pokemon, Muffin, comes in, isn't as cool as the other ones, but it's still pretty creepy, and it goes down in 1, which means we defeat Lorelei. And apparently in this version of Kanto, Bruno has decided to flex his mind muscle instead of his big boy muscles. Anyways, Beyond comes in first. And we're sending in Paradox Shuckle. And going for a Zen Headbutt, we're going to do basically nothing as it then goes for a Double Edge. After that, Bruno's going to use a full restore, and we're going to go for a Meteor Mash, doing barely anything, and then hopefully a second one will get us the attack boost, but it doesn't as this thing goes for a Hammer Arm. Bruno then uses this full restore, and we're going to keep on mashing this thing full of meteors. And then we're going to get it down to about half before we finally get the attack boost, and a Double Edge is going to activate our berry. From here, I'm going to go for a Recover to get back up to full as it decides to go for a Thrash this time. And then going for another Meteor Mash, we're going to get the Beyond down wicked low as the Thrash now has this thing confused, and we miss! Body punches himself in the face and goes down. Next up comes Barachi, who is the cutest thing I have ever seen in my life as it goes for a Fell Stinger. So we're going to swap Shuckle out and then send in Littlefoot as this thing tries to go for another Fell Stinger. And unleashing a Flamethrower, we're going to get it down way into the red as it then goes for an Agility and then a second one because it can't wait to go down. This is going to lead up into Alicia, and look at this absolutely amazing little fella. And we're going to go for a Dragon Pulse, getting it down to about half as it decides to go for Trump Card, and we're going to keep on firing off Dragon Pulses as it continues to whittle us down. But once we get the Poison Point off, one more Dragon Pulse is obviously more than enough to take it down, which leads into Wubras. And since this thing is ice, we're going to go for a Flamethrower, getting it down to about half as we manage to get the burn off, and all it does is set up a safeguard. See ya. Anywho's, Regiscion comes in as his ace Pokemon. And we are going to go for a Dragon Pulse as it goes for a Zen Headbutt, doing a surprising amount of damage to us. And then going for another Dragon Pulse, we're going to get it down to a third as it launches off a Revenge, but thank God this thing is slow start, and thank goodness I got the poison off. One more Dragon Pulse takes down the Regiscion, and we've defeated Bruno and his big old brain boys. And apparently Agatha is the master of Dragon-type Pokemon, and this might be bad. But you know, fingers crossed everybody. Agatha starts out with Exeggutor, and we send in Oz. We're going to outspeed, going for a Dragon Pulse, and fortunately we can take this thing down in 1 as Chartar comes in next. So firing off another Dragon Pulse, grabs the KO, and thank goodness none of these guys are fully evolved as Raychar comes in next. It hits us with an extreme speed, doing some decent damage, and we can go for a Dragon Pulse, taking it out. Latovion is up next, and I absolutely love you as a Boom Burst does about 50%, and I don't know why you use Psychic, but it goes down, which is going to lead into Dragazard. And of course, one Dragon Pulse is more than enough for this thing, and we've destroyed Agatha's dragons. So, did you know that poisons are mythical Pokemon? They're super neat, and good thing I'm leading off with Steve. Ha 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 ha! Anywho, let's take on Lance. Lance starts off by setting in a Golemies, and we send in Steve. I am going to go for a single Swords Dance, hoping that it's enough, as it hazes away my stat changes, excuse you. Then it goes for a quick guard, so we're going to go back to that Swords Dance. And now with a Psycho Cut, we take down this Bat Anchor. Crestdoor comes in next, and it is super neat as we do about 50%, and then it goes for a Slash. So I might as well go for another Swords Dance, as another Slash does a bit of damage to us before Lance uses his first full restore. And then after that, he's going to immediately use his second, as this shiny piece of garbage goes down after 2. Cubot comes in next, and I think that this is a wicked sprite, but it's also wicked dead, as a Nidoking comes in next, and I think it looks a little piggy. But anywho, see ya, buddy. Which leads into his final Pokemon, a Toxlord. This is an absolute unit of a Pokemon, but it goes down, and now we're moving on to our final challenge. As we enter the Champion's Chamber, we find Rando, and he's turned the entire thing into a grand throne room, and we see him atop a throne of dragon skulls. King Rando the Dragon Slayer. He has somehow taken credit for the defeat of Team Rocket, and even says that Zapmalkuno was not a Zapmalkuno. He said it was Dragon the Dracotrigan. And we're here to prevent him from spreading more lies. We're the Dragon Master, and I'm pretty sure I want to be the Queen of England, but not by marrying you. I just want the sword. Give me Excalibur! Rando's gonna start off with Ursa Giat, and we send in Steve. I'm gonna risk it going for a Swords Dance right away, as this thing decides to go for a Thrash, scoring a massive critical hit. And at a +2 Psycho Cut, it's not enough to take it down, as fortunately it's now confused. And going for one more Psycho Cut isn't enough as Steve goes down. Well, maybe I should have respected Rando a bit more as we send in Pumbaa. So we're going to start going for some Dragon Dances here, and hopefully I can just annihilate this thing, as a Thrash still does quite a bit of damage to me, and then Rando heals up with his first full restore. And now that we're at +3 for attack and speed, it's then going to go for a Scary Face, knocking us down to +2, but I'm going to assist on getting back to +3. Okay, fine, +2's okay. We're going to go for a Crunch, scoring a massive hit, and why is this bird so burly? But as Rando's going to continue going through all of his full restores, I guess there's one silver lining to this, until he finally outspeeds us, but we can take him down with another Crunch. Whimsarashi comes in next, and it is absolutely adorable as it manages to connect with a Hurricane, knocking us down well below half and confusing us, but we break through with a Poison Trap, grabbing the KO as Yankel comes in. And Air Slash does a decent amount of damage to us, and unfortunately gets the flinch off, as now we are knocked way into the red, but we can take it down with an Aqua Tail. Dawn Turn comes in, and I'm risking it for the biscuit as he outspeeds us with an Earthquake. What in the world is happening? So I guess let's set in Littlefoot, and we're going to outspeed, going for a Surf, getting him down pretty low as he goes for a Scary Face. Then with his leftovers, he's going to heal up to about half, and now that he outspeeds us, he goes for an Earthquake, scoring a massive hit, but we can take him down, which is going to lead into Whalnix. And I'm going to swap Littlefoot out, this time sending in Oz, and it's going to go for a Bounce. After taking the Bounce, we're then going to go for a Thunderbolt on the following turn, taking it down in just one shot, which leads into Manlax, his final Pokemon. And it is absolutely adorable and hilarious, but after just 2 Thunderbolts, we seal King Rando's fate. We have become the Queen of England. And that, everyone, is how I beat a hardcore randomized Nuzlocke of Pokemon Infinite Fusion using only Dragon-type Pokemon. If you liked the video and you made it this far and you're not subscribed, then what the heck are you doing? You should definitely hit that button. Also, if this isn't your first time here, you should definitely double check and make sure that you're subscribed. Over 80% of my viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you could help me out, that'd be super cool. I'm also pretty sure that by the time this video comes out, we'll have done at least a session or 2 of our new homebrew D&D with Pokemon. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, you should definitely go and check out the archive on that. But anywho, I'll see you all in the next video.